When you first open Psychonauts 2, you're greeted with a long page of text, detailing that the game is going to focus on some serious mental health conditions. It may seem like a stark way to begin a lighthearted 3D platformer, but really, it's the only way. Because by doing this, Psychonauts 2 can do what it does best. Teach the player to understand mental health, rather than just use mental health as a way to move the story forward. Hey everyone, Triceratops Jr. here. Psychonauts 2 is without a doubt my favorite game of 2021 so far. It's a perfect example of a sequel done right, and it lives up entirely to the legacy of the first game. Psychonauts 2 also manages to cover some pretty intense subjects, but in a way that helps players to better understand, which is something that not a lot of games have done, and let alone done well. So today, I'm going to be discussing Psychonauts 2, and what makes it such a special game. But before I begin, I want to give a few warnings. First, I want to give the same warning that the game does. Seeing as I'm talking about Psychonauts 2, it would be impossible to go into any depth without covering some of those darker topics. Second, I want to give a spoiler warning, because I'm going to be going over the events of the game, and some of those events may be big spoilers, so if you haven't played the game and don't want to be spoiled, this right here is your warning, okay? Now, with that out of the way, let's begin. When Psychonauts first released in 2005, it was a failure. It wasn't selling despite critics raving about it, but like the little engine that could, Tim Schafer and the lovely folks at Double Fine didn't give up. Slowly but surely, Psychonauts gained a cult following and began to sell more and more. It was like the gaming world's worst kept secret. Everyone knew about it, but it just didn't sell very well. In the years following the game's release, Tim Schafer was approached many times with the idea of creating a sequel, and he loved the idea. He wanted to take the small project that they had made and expand it to even greater levels. But the process wasn't fast. The game seemed to be in a limbo of sorts. People hoped it would come, but there was never any news. In 2012, Minecraft creator Marcus Pearson made a public offer to fund the game, but over time those plans fell through. But finally, in 2015, at the Game Awards, Tim Schafer announced that they were working on Psychonauts 2 and would be using a crowdfunding service to help get the game made. The game raised enough money just 5 days before the crowdfunding ended, and the team was ready to work. It would take 6 more years, a VR game, which is great by the way if you haven't played it or seen it, but finally, on August 25th, 2021, Psychonauts 2 was released. I could go into the nitty-gritty and do a review, but joke's on you. I already did one right after I finished the game, so go watch that if you want to get my opinions. Today, I want to go into detail about what I think is the most important part of Psychonauts 2, coping and forgiving. The levels of Psychonauts 2 are oozing with personality and a lot of humor, but they also all carry a hefty weight of darkness too. Addiction, depression, guilt, pain, all of these things and more are represented in Psychonauts 2, and at its core, the game is about learning how to understand and deal with these things. The game opening with a warning is just the front page of a book that opens to reveal a lot of problems. But at the back of the book, you'll also find solutions. So, I'm going to talk about these problems today, and I'm going to talk about how Psychonauts 2 addresses them and solves them. Things may get candid too, because I can relate to some of these issues, but at the end of the day, it's all about learning and growing. So, let's do it together. Starting off, I want to talk about our protagonist, Rasputin, and the idea of consent. This is honestly such a minor detail, but it's really one of the cruxes of the whole game. Raz comes to the Psychonauts headquarters with this idea that he's already an agent, but really, he still has so much more to learn, both about being a Psychonaut and about life itself. So, rightfully so, Raz is sent to the intern program, and the schooling begins. But he makes a crucial mistake right away, rewiring his teacher's brain and driving her a little bit crazy. Over the course of the level, you learn a bit about the teacher, Agent Forsyth, second head of the Psychonauts, but also, Raz learns the most important lesson taught to him in the game. Always ask for consent first. At the start of the level, Raz is wild. He messes up her head without asking or thinking of the consequences. But at the end of the level, he learns before ever entering a brain or doing anything in that brain, always ask first. And he seriously does. For the entire rest of the game, he asks permission before going into people's heads, something he never did in the first game and had never done up to this point in the game. It's such a small detail, I didn't even notice it until I saw someone point it out on Reddit, but it really is such a brilliant thing that no attention gets brought to, even though it's extremely important. So I think that's a great way to set the whole thing up, because it's a very solid through line for Raz, which can kind of tie the different characters and worlds together. I'm trying to keep things somewhat chronological, but there are times when the order doesn't matter, so let's just keep trucking along and talk about puppets and a cooking show. Compton Boole is suffering from anxiety and panic attacks. This causes him to feel constantly overwhelmed, and for himself at least, he thought the best solution would be to lock himself away in psycho-isolation, where no one would bother him. But for the sake of the story, Raz must bother him. After finally getting Compton out of his room, Raz asks to go inside his head and look around, and what we find would make Gordon Ramsay shudder with fear. It's a puppet cooking show full of nightmare fuel for people of all ages. The main source of these feelings comes from Compton's struggles with independence. For many years, he was in a codependent relationship with Agent Cassie Opia. The two did everything together, and so when she left after the original Psychonauts broke up, he broke down and couldn't imagine a world where he had to do everything alone. But the real answer to his problems was that he doesn't need to do everything alone, even when he's separated from Cassie. Raz shows him this by helping him to win the cooking show and defeating some of those inner demons that exist inside of Compton's head. Compton's issues certainly aren't the darkest in the game, but it is a relatable one. It's extremely common for relationships to end and for people to break down for a while. It's also common for bad relationships to not end because people don't want to be alone. The truth of the matter is that love hurts sometimes, but it's all about building yourself back up to something bigger and better, and that's what Raz helps Compton with. The pieces of the game's puzzle are slowly starting to come together to show what the theme is, and I think after this next world I can start to explain why Psychonauts 2 works so well, and also why it's so important. So let's talk about Bob's Bottles. One of the game's later levels, Bob's Bottles, focuses on Bob Zanotto. Bob's brain is riddled with self-doubt, self-hatred, and alcohol. Lots and lots of alcohol. Bob didn't have an easy life. After the death of his father, his mother turned to alcohol, a vice she would partake of in the privacy of her greenhouse, which is where Bob would one day find her dead. Bob is also suffering from the loss of his husband, Helmut Fulbear. When Bob met Helmut, he fell in love immediately and tried to repress his feelings, but eventually the two got together, fell in love, and got married. Following Helmut's quote-unquote death, Bob turned to alcohol, just like his mother, and went down a grief-stricken spiral, leading to him being removed from the Psychonauts and isolating himself in the greenhouse. When Raz finds Bob, he's all alone and without purpose, and of course, he's also drunk. Addiction, and more specifically alcoholism, is sadly common, and so approaching this situation took a lot of care and delicacy to untangle the ideas. For Bob, the alcohol is fueling his inner demons, and a downward spiral truly is the best way to describe it. The way Bob sees it, there's no escape, so he keeps digging himself deeper and deeper into the pit. Raz sees things differently, though. The world of Bob's Bottles is a massive sea with scattered islands. Bob has stranded himself on one of these islands, but on some of the others, Raz finds corked bottles, each one locking away different repressed memories and feelings which he has bottled up. Pun intended. Not only is this a brilliant way to design this level, but it also works to help Bob solve his issues the best way possible. One thing at a time. Trying to tackle every problem at once is overwhelming and can often lead to more problems, but going one problem at a time helps you to slowly work through the problems. Going from Bob's issues with his mother, to his grief over the loss of his husband, and finally to his feelings of abandonment by his family after he was kicked out of the Psychonauts by his nephew, Truman Zanotto, current Grand Head of the Psychonauts. One by one, Raz helps to work through Bob's brain, and in the end, manages to make things better, helping Bob realize that he needs to grow like the plants in his greenhouse, and not be held back by his past. So with those last two levels I detailed, I think I can finally share the theme of the game. Everybody hurts. Everyone has issues, and that's okay. It doesn't make you any better or worse than anyone else, but even more important than that is that you can talk through these issues and come out the other side better for it. And although it's not as easy as having some young boy go through your head and sort things out, it is very possible to talk through your pains and your struggles and to come out the other side a much brighter and happier person. So to really drive this point home, I'm going to talk about one more level. Or, technically, 3 more levels. Ford Cruller was a psychonaut and leader of the Psychic Six, but as was shown in the first game, his mind is completely shattered. In the first game, it's said that this happened in a massive psychic battle, which is technically true in some sense, but over the course of Psychonauts 2, you learn that this occurred after the battle, and that Ford did it to himself. This was partially for the purpose of protecting everyone, but also to protect himself from the grief and regret that he felt. In Psychonauts 2, you visit Ford's mind 3 times. Technically 4, but anyway. Each time you unravel a different piece of his past and help to slowly untangle his memories. The 3 levels, barber, bowling alley, and mailroom, all associate to jobs that Ford has taken on in his shattered state. As you slowly uncover the truth about his past, Ford starts to remember more of himself and the reasons why he shattered his mind and tried to block everything out. The woman who Raz believes to be his grandmother is actually the evil Maligula and was once upon a time Ford's true love. After she committed countless war crimes, Ford wiped her memories and broke his own to protect her and himself and to save her from imprisonment or worse. He locked away his grief and pain behind a broken mind for a noble cause, but it also caused a lot of damage. As Raz unravels Ford's mind, Ford is full of a deep sense of regret for his past actions, and I think there are some pretty interesting parallels that can be drawn between Ford's actions and Raz's actions throughout the game. Both take it upon themselves to help save others, but don't take much time to think about the consequences that it has on the self. Which brings me to my final point that I want to make. It's wonderful to help others and to be there for others, but if that's happening at the cost of yourself, it isn't always worth it. Everyone needs time to just think about themselves and to take care of themselves, and I think, in conclusion, that is the ultimate message of Psychonauts 2. Take care of yourself. It all comes back to that warning at the start of the game. The trigger warning exists so that people can take care of themselves, and if they don't want to see any of those things listed in that opening screen, they don't have to. So, if there's one thing you take away from this video, other than the fact that Psychonauts 2 is a great thought-provoking game, it's that you should take care of yourself and never feel afraid to reach out for help when you need it. There are always people who are there for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one. I'm really happy with how this video turned out, so just let me know in the comments what you think of Psychonauts 2, and tell someone, not even in the comments, just tell someone that you care about them and that you're there for them, okay? Just do that for me, all right? Good. If you want to catch me live, I stream over at twitch.tv/Triceratops_Jr. a couple times a week usually, so you can find me there. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching again, and peace out, y'all. I will catch you on the flip side.